Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. It is no April Fool's joke. We are coming to you an hour earlier than usual today. Duty calls. Our staffers, you know them as Steve Hellwagon, Dave Biddle, Patrick Murphy. Those guys will be out at practice today as spring practice continues. That means visitors, and that means another commitment, possibly. We will discuss yesterday's commitment. Were you surprised that Ohio State added the number one defensive back in the country out of Baton Rouge? That does not happen every day, but these Buckeyes are living good. Once again, this podcast covers the national champions. I've got to let you know about a great product we have sponsoring the show today, and that is Mando whole body deodorant from the creators of Lumi, created by a doctor, blocks odor all day, and controls odor for up to 72 hours. All products are baking soda free and paraben free, and this is kind of you get into your nooks and your crannies, not just for your pits. It's proven to control odor better than a shower with soap. How about that? It's America's number one whole body deodorant. If you want to try it right now, you can find them in Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country. But for best deals, go to shopmando.com. But for the best deal, Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That's 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Talk about a boost in confidence. Bill Kurelic, Mark Porter. Some of you know them as the Dean and the Grand Poobah. Guys, yesterday, kind of a surprise. I don't know if the Buckeyes are really trying to help us with Bucknuts Morning 5 programming, but each of our last 4 shows, we've had a fresh commitment to discuss, sometimes 2. I've been surprised by a couple. Bill, I've not been surprised as much as yesterday's. Blaine Bradford out of Baton Rouge Catholic. That is impressive no matter how good the prospect is, to get a football player to choose to come up north to the Big Ten when coming out of Baton Rouge. That's impressive. Consider he's the number one defensive back in the 24/7 Sports composite. Blaine Bradford. The number 2 defensive back is Braylon Womack. We previewed him a while back. Blaine Bradford out of Baton Rouge Catholic. Bill, were you surprised? And maybe put this in context. This is about the best Southern early prospect you could get for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think many people had it on their bingo card going into the weekend, say on Thursday, that Blaine Bradford was going to commit to Ohio State this weekend. I think a lot of people felt, and myself included, that his decision could well come down to LSU or Ohio State. It's the 2 official visits he had scheduled, and it's the 2 schools that he had, talked and shown a lot of interest in. And he's a Baton Rouge kid, so you think LSU is going to be there. Plus, his brother's going to be a football player at LSU. He is a 2025 guy. So you thought Ohio State was going to challenge, and maybe that it could be a situation where he loved his Ohio State official visit in June better. But going to Ohio State this weekend and making a commit this weekend, I don't think was on many bingo cards, like I said, before the weekend started. Now, I will say that he had been saying all along that it wasn't a lock, done deal, or anything else that he was going to go to LSU with his brother, that he was going to look at schools and make his own decision, and that's what he did. I guess one little tip-off might be the length of his visit. We knew going in that he was going to make a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday unofficial visit to Ohio State in the spring. That doesn't happen very often. A 4-day unofficial visit to a school in the springtime doesn't happen that often. So that might have been a little tip-off that he had in mind that this could happen, and boom, it did happen. It's huge. In the composite, as you mentioned, he's the number one safety in the country, and he just fits an Ohio State need. I think is also telling what his father said on X when somebody asked him about, eventually ending up flipping to LSU. His father, Stacy, flat out said that no, that's not going to happen. That, as Stacy, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, put it, Ohio State just recruited him better than anybody else. And that it is, as his father put it on the X response, a done deal that he is headed to Ohio State.
Done deal is good, if you were just checking in. And yeah, we'll get to that, Bill. It's incredible. There are certain spots of the country that when Ohio State gets a commitment from there, you get about 40 to 50 Bucknutters hopping in the thread and saying, oh, wake me when signing day comes. Oh, all this other stuff. I'm not sure we'll discuss this, but we have to discuss all the recruiting cliches we have to update them for the NIL era here. And we will do that to see if that stuff still holds. But first, Marcus, this was your exposure to Blaine Bradford. Blaine Bradford, 6'1", 207 pounds. There's another safety at Ohio State right now who's 6 foot, 205 pounds, is pretty good. So if you're looking for a mold, we're about an inch taller and 2 pounds heavier. That might be our eyes getting too big for our stomach, but we've got the best safety in college football on the team already. What's your thoughts on Blaine Bradford after watching him on film?
After listening to Bill talk about his bingo card, I wonder how many Bucknutters are playing bingo still. That's just a random question out there.
There's a few up there, I'm sure.
There's a few. And when you talk about his brother, I wonder, how much the family thought if one of our sons is starting in the secondary at LSU, what is the chance that the other safety is going to be our other son? Or would one actually be blocking out the son for the other? So, to roll the dice and have both starting safeties at LSU might be tough. Or Bill said Ohio State may have out-recruited them. And I think the man Caleb Downs may have a lot to do with the recruiting and the way the safety looks playing in the Ohio State defense. It almost looks like a featured performer, the way that defense is set up for Caleb Downs. All that said, this film was awesome. When you say number one composite safety, he does everything on this film to live up to it. I started off, and I always like to start off with not the way every other film starts, but here's him on special teams. First guy down the field and, nice tackle. And again, on special teams, you'll see him light up here and just blow somebody up. So early on in his career, he's a special teams candidate. He's almost made to come down on a kickoff team. And then talk about a thumper. Yeah, we're going to have probably 6 or 7 plays in a row here where you're going to see his shoulder pads meet ball carrier and meet it in a nasty way, whether it's run versus pass. You come through as a secondary. But what I like about him is whether he's lined up at deep safety or in the box like this, he covers some ground, and that's called range. His range when he's over the top or when he's down in there, and look at the amount of ground he covers here to get to the ball carrier. The speed is on display, his aggressiveness, like when wild animals attack the cheetah against the gazelle, you see that type of play here over and over where, the nastiness. And this film, we don't show the whole thing here, but we get into his coverage ability and some other things he does on tape. So, Dan likes a player a lot when he can't turn it off, when he just wants to keep
that was a mistake.
Yeah, he really does a great job against the run. It'll be a while before I compare someone to Caleb Downs because that's putting them in rare air and putting the almost a target on their back to deliver on that type of level. But there are some flashes and there are some shades of some very good safety play on this film. And considering his height and weight already, boy, he's a couple cheeseburgers away from being in the box. You know, he gets to 210, 215. Oh boy, you know, Sonny Styles, ask him how that worked out for him. You know, you start off back there, but when your genetics take over and you fill out, but that's also I'm doing that to point out how good he is against the run, that he can even be thought of as a possible linebacker down the road. But I doubt very highly that ever happens.
He's very impressive. Bill, let's talk recruiting here in terms of context. They already have a commitment from Jacob Weatherspoon, the number 13 safety in the class out of Avon, who's a stud. Does this affect Braylon Womack, or are they putting together the greatest safety class of all time?
If Braylon Womack wants in, he'll get in. He's that good. I mean, you know, he's just that good. And you look at Jacob Weatherspoon, you know, he has been recruited more as a corner by Ohio State. Now, he could play safety. In fact, I think I could see him as a nickel corner.
It sounds to me like a nickel.
Yeah, premium position for him. But I think he can also play as a corner, and I think he can play as a safety. And like you said, premium position. I think the best spot would be nickel corner for Jacob Weatherspoon. But they'll figure it out. He's just a very talented athlete, and they'll figure it out. And I'm very high on Jacob Weatherspoon, whatever he ends up at. I think he's going to be a really good player for Ohio State. So, I think Womack, he's just too good that you're not going to let him in. And as you said, Dan, they get Womack and Bradford. That's unbelievable, really. That would be a tremendous duo. And I think before the show, Dan, you mentioned that those are the top two defensive backs in the country, I think.
Yep, they are, regardless of position, according to the composite. That would be incredible, especially built on what they got at corner this past class, and just DBU, step on up. But we're going to have to build a new wing, DBU, wide receiver U. I think we were RBU in this draft. But anyway.
And I think, Dan, that reminds me of Daniel Sanchez. And we, of course, know, I think everybody that turns into this show knows who Daniel and his wife Deetra are, the parents of Devin Sanchez. And after the commitment yesterday of Blaine Bradford, Daniel Sanchez posted on X, BIA is not a slogan.
Best in America. And, you know, putting that in context, a kid from Houston and Sanchez and a kid from Baton Rouge. It's one thing to have Jacob Weatherspoon coming from Avon, but to be able to go into those states with teams you are directly competing with is just tremendous. All right, Bill, that is awesome. Who else was here this past weekend? I know you had a big wrap up on guys who were here and visited. Let's go over those dudes and talk about who was here and what you think. Shocking, Tyler Bowen has slowed down, no commitments. I don't know what he's up to. 3 days without an offensive line commitment. What are we doing? But where were we this past weekend? And then we have practice again today and some more visitors, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But who was here this past weekend that we need to discuss both in and out of state?
Well, real quick before that, think how many doors have been broken down lately. It used to be a long time ago. Ohio State's never going to get a kid out of Baton Rouge. Well,
Never.
Dwayne
and I used to talk about Louisiana was actually a fortress because they produce big boys that Dwayne used to love in the middle, and we would get on them every time, and they would never come here. That if this sticks, it will be legendary. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I've been doing this, I think, 38 years now. And the one I remember, and I don't remember him that well because I can't think of his last name, but the running back that Ohio State got out of there a long, long time ago, Jonathan Wells.
Oh, yeah, big boy.
Even as my hair gets gray, I pulled that one out just in time. As I tell my wife, if it gets in the steel trap, and the recruiting stuff usually does, it tends to stick there.
There you go. All fastballs. Mika, Jonathan Wells, confirmed.
Yep. And then, of course, for a long, long time, in fact, until the last couple of years, Ohio State never got anybody out of Alabama. Well, that door has definitely been broken through and knocked down in a big way. But going back to your question from this past weekend, and you talked about the offensive line and how, why haven't we got a commitment? Well, no commitments over the weekend, but they did make a lot of progress with one guy, Evan Goodwin from Dan. Do you remember?
Is he Bauxite, Arkansas, Bill?
Bauxite, Arkansas. Yep.
Looking at property there.
Yep. Evan Goodwin, he had a great visit to Ohio State. It was a multi-day 27th and 28th visit, and it went so well that he said he's going to have to make some tough calls. And when he first told me that, tough calls, that usually means tough calls to other schools that I'm not going there. And I thought that's pretty quick, but that's not exactly what he meant. But what he meant was still good. He said he's going to have to make some tough calls and rearrange some scheduled official visits, because he's got to get Ohio State in there for an official visit. So he is been in the process of doing that since his visit, of maybe moving or getting rid of a visit or two so that he can make an official visit back to Ohio State. He said it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that you get to play potentially for the national champions in a place like Ohio State. So Ohio State did extremely well with him. Savion Hyder visited, but I still don't have a great vibe on where he's going. I think Ohio State has a chance. Simeon Caldwell is a guy we should be talking about, the safety / linebacker from Florida, and he is the nephew of Tim Walton. His visit went extremely well, so he's somebody certainly to keep in mind moving forward as a potential Buckeye. Drew Evers, talk about the offensive lineman. His visit went extremely well. He already had an official visit scheduled to Ohio State, but the vibe I got from him was extremely positive. He's not the highest rated offensive lineman, but he's really good in moving up the rankings list, at least in my opinion. So he's another one certainly that I would keep in mind. So there's a handful of guys that I think in particular from this past weekend had really, really good visits to Ohio State. Although it was on Thursday, Havon Finney, a cornerback out of California, didn't make it on the weekend, made it on Thursday, but that visit went extremely well too, as did Caden Wyatt Dixon, the wide receiver from California. I think Ohio State is moving up for him, trending a little bit. Ohio State, Oregon at the top for Caden Dixon Wyatt. And again, those two guys, Dixon Wyatt and Havon Finney, made their visits to Ohio State on Thursday.
And you guys remember Dixon Wyatt or Wyatt Dixon? I'm not going to get that correct today without looking for it. We did a report on him. Mark went Buckeye in the Sky on him, I think 2 weeks ago. He plays in the same offense as Chris Henry Jr. And about 3 or 4 other elite prospects. Modern day, I don't want to start that college high school argument again, but it's a good one. All right. This is just right on cue. Brass tacks. I don't trust it. I'll believe it when I see it. Baton Rouge. Yeah, right. Naeem Offer from Alabama committed to Ohio State from Bama. Where he at? He is in Oregon, which is about twice as far away from Alabama as Ohio State. So I'm not sure how that applies. The general idea of the Southern guys is you can't get him out of there. That's not the issue. Offered went to Oregon because he thinks he's getting a shoe. So this is going to be there'll be an NIL component to this, I'm sure, but I don't understand. I don't really see the hook with Offered. All right. Dixon Wyatt. Thank you, Mika. Copy editor, pseudo copy editor of the show here. Bill, speaking of Mika, what's up with Favor Aki? Mark, you know Favor Aki. We all know Favor Aki. There was some thought that he could be on commitment watch. Then Savion Hyder visited, and maybe they're not taking a running back now, or who knows? But Favor Aki got the offer, has his final 3. Where are we at with Favor Aki?
His visit went really well. I think in the case of Ohio State and what they're looking for at running back, the possibility is there of taking 2, but it is not a done deal that's going to happen. It's not really a necessity because if you look at the running back room right now with the return of Sam Williams-Dixon, they've got their numbers. They're in good shape numbers-wise. And for the most part, the running backs currently at Ohio State are young guys. They took 3 last for the 2025 cycle. So numbers-wise, they're in good shape. So Ohio State can slow things down a little bit. Yeah, sure. If Savion Hyder wants to walk in the door and commit right now, no brainer. I think Mark can attest to that. He's in. No, but they've got a group of running backs that are all very good players that are all interested. That includes Favor Aki. That includes Jay Lamar from Georgia, who recently visited, a couple other guys. So they're in no hurry to fill up that running back room. And I think unless for some reason they get in a hurry, I think Favor Aki and a couple others, they're going to probably go into May and maybe June when official visits come before anything is final on the running backs in this class.
Do you guys feel like competition for spots is going to be even tougher now? I was wanting to see this. This is the Bradford commitment is the first time I was like, okay, this is national championship buzz stuff here. That is very encouraging. Do you guys, Mark, you can say, do you get the sense talking to people that, I mean, obviously you're going to be more attractive when you win the championship, but do you get the sense that that's made them even more attractive? Because there's got to be reasoning for this. This is kind of out of left field. What do you think, Mike?
Ask Coach Bowen with all the offensive line commitments.
Yeah.
I think, you're definitely seeing a FOMO from recruits, fear of missing out on their chance to play, for the national championship. Yeah, I think that's more the feel, because this does feel like it's early.
Very early. Bill, do you think that? I mean, this is not your first rodeo. I don't want to say what number rodeo it is for you, but I'll get anyway, no jokes. It's too early. But your thoughts, are you getting that sense that there's going to be a crowd at the inn?
Yeah, and it is a lot of rodeos, by the way, Dan. But again, Ohio State is Ohio State, but they're coming off a national championship now. And I talked about this on a radio show I did last night, that Ohio State is at the top right now, and recruiting wise, they have one of the best staffs right now that I can remember in my 38 years of doing this recruiting wise. They added Carlos Lachlan, and what did he come in and do? He recruited 3 running backs, and all outstanding for the 2025 class, and he added 1 in the portal. I mean, he did a spectacular job. Matt Guerreri came in a year ago, and what is he doing? A tremendous job recruiting-wise. Now you got Tyler Bowen. It used to be, well, we may not make our numbers on the offensive line. Tyler Bowen has come in, and he's knocked that door down. He's got more commitments than anybody on the staff right now. When was the last time you could say that about an offensive line coach having more commitments than anybody else on the staff? So you look at the staff as a whole. And by the way, the notion that coordinators aren't good recruiters necessarily, well, who is going to even think about our offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline, not being a good recruiter? So you got your offensive coordinator as a 5-star recruiter now. And I think it's a little bit early. We don't have a baseball card, so to speak, a track record. You look at it, the back of the baseball card. We don't have one on Matt Patricia yet because he hasn't really he's been in the NFL for so long. But I think the vibe I get from talking to recruits after they've been at Ohio State, defensive recruits that have talked to Matt Patricia, I think he's going to be a really good recruiter for Ohio State too. So top to bottom, this is a great recruiting staff for Ohio State, which means positions. It's going to be, you better get into the end relatively early, unless unless you're a Savion Hyder, you can wait a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at their 8 commitments right here, and it's a lot of. If you look at their state rankings, 2, 2, 2, 9, 10, 2, 8. So these guys are the top-rated guys. What's really interesting is they're building out the front. You've got your left tackle in Sam Greer, your left guard in Max Riley, your center in Tucker Smith, your tight end in Corbin Fordham, and now we just need another guard and another tackle. And there's a question on here. How many online commits will they take in this class? 6. The question is, Mark, and this is what we always get to. They may have to, not have to, but once you have 3 or 4 commitments who are offensive linemen in the class who have pretty obvious positions, I think they're going to have to add the class out or build it out mostly. I mean, there are some other guys here, but there's going to be some in-state guys that get in there. Who do you see as the next guys up? I'd like to refresh this every now and then. We've got the tackle. We've got a guard. Who would you take next? In-state, Mark.
In Ohio, the name we've been talking about is Landry Breed. Yeah, Landry Breed from Menor, Ohio. And he could be an inside guy, center, guard. He plays tackle, but he doesn't have the length of Sam Greer. And I think Sam Greer is the bar for length. So when you have a guy like that in the class, the 5-star, everyone else is going to kind of play second fiddle to his length. But you could fill it out nationally with some longer guys. We've checked a couple out on this podcast. But I think all eyes are for camp season in June, and Landry Breed is high on that list.
Bill, thoughts on that? How many guys they'll end up with? 6 or 7?
Well, I think it'll be at least 5. I think it could be 6. I would be a little surprised if they go to 7, but I think 5 to 6 would be the number, and I think it'll depend on who wants in. You look at the top of the board, so to speak, and there are, Jackson Cantwell's up there, but I don't really think that's going to happen. Felix Ojo, he's going to get in if he wants in. They've, as good as Sam Greer is, you could have 2. If Felix Ojo went in and wanted in and got into Ohio State, you got 2 great left tackle possibilities. They've told Felix Ojo, you can be our left tackle. Sam Greer, he plays left tackle for Hoban, but that'd be a pretty nice tackle duo right there. In fact, it would be a spectacular tackle duo. Darius Gray, he's up there at the top of the board, and someone that has certainly a very reciprocal interest in Ohio State. You kind of go on down the list. Tommy Tofi from California, that'd be a great addition. And he wouldn't be making this spring visit to Ohio State if he didn't have a legitimate interest in the Buckeyes. Kelvin Obot was just here at Ohio State this past weekend. We've talked about Goodwin from Bauxite, Arkansas. There's just a lot of guys out there to fill those last 2 to 3 positions, and there's a couple I haven't even mentioned yet. Micah Smith, I should mention him. Certainly.
Yeah, keep in mind with NIL, you can't pay everybody top dollar here. And so the idea of getting 2 listen, I'm all for getting Felix Ojo to complement Sam Greer at tackle. But that I'd have to see that one to believe it in terms of salary cap management, as it were. Another school's going to be able to probably pay him as the number 1 left tackle. So, there's a lot of chatter about comparing Bradford to Naeem Offord. I'm not really sure why. I don't think they really have anything to do with each other. They're not from the same state, I guess, because maybe they are both defensive backs, but I don't see the hook there. I get it can be negative, and it's possible that a guy will defect eventually, but I think it's okay to be optimistic about it, especially as Bill said, the Pops has come out and good, and Dylan Drummond, exactly. Zion Grady, who's the little guy we got? Turbo Rogers, he's from Alabama. So, yeah, I think in the NIL era, we got to be careful about the I keep going back to the Tarvis Alford example. He announced his commitment and then his 5 visits. That is the complete opposite of what we've seen in the past, and it's become basically par. So I get that guys in the past, what do we call this? The Torrance Gibson principle. Although he actually showed up. Everyone told me Sean Wade wasn't coming too. I never heard anyone wasn't coming as much as Sean Wade, Bill. He seemed to make it. So let's stay a little bit more positive than that. All right. Who's coming today, Bill? Who's coming in the week ahead that we need to discuss? Any guys from Ohio coming in and trying to get an offer?
Well, I should mention at one time Maxwell Riley, obviously he's committed to Ohio State, was going to make his big visit today. That was a big visit because it would have been the first time he talked in person to Matt Bowen, but and he had that set up. He was going to visit Clemson last week and then visit Ohio State today. But he, of course, committed to Ohio State. He's not coming in today, and it's no worry whatsoever. He just he doesn't need to do that. He's in the middle of track season right now, by the way. He throws the shot and discus, I believe, both. But he's a track guy and really good one. He's not coming in today. In fact, he kind of confirmed that to me late last night that not going to be there today. But again, no worry whatsoever. He is absolutely a committed guy. Just doesn't need to come down here right now after visiting Ohio State a couple weeks ago and committing. Deuce Gerald's is an interesting one. Defensive lineman from Georgia. And it'd be interesting, Matt Patricia, Larry Johnson, I'm sure, are going to be spending time talking with him today, but he'll be coming in. Tommy Topiai at one point he's defensive. He's the lineman from the West Coast. At one time, he was going to visit Ohio State about a week ago, but he moved things back. And an interesting 2027 running back, Amir Brown, that Ohio State has offered a scholarship. So those are 3 good ones right there that Ohio State has offered that are scheduled to visit today. And then another change was, Mark knows this kid, DeAnthony Crittenden from Cleveland. He was going to visit Ohio State yesterday, but unfortunately, flat tire changed that, and he will be at Ohio State today instead.
Marcus. Caden Turner, I believe, out of Dawson Bryant. Is that Ironton, Ohio? Do you know who this is? Are you familiar with this guy?
I'm frozen on you guys, but I think you're talking about Caden Turner from Dawson Bryant.
We are
just not going to compare nationally some of the players out there. I think he's more of a small school MAC type player. That length is intriguing, and he definitely is beating up the competition. But I think he's a little farther down the trough.
All right, sir. We'll see if we have any other questions. Bill, Mika's taking over here, people. Thoughts on Reynaldo Perez camp possibility? Anyone?
Yeah, that's where I'd have him as a camp guy. Much like the kid from Dawson Bryant, has length and has a good film.
Position,
but
school?
I don't know if he has the. Yeah, he's a defensive end from Columbus Academy, okay. And I'm sure, he has a decent offer list on his length, but it might be a little bit of a stretch right now for Ohio State. The film he has is good, but I wouldn't consider it national level great. But Mika's picked out 2 of the longer bodies in the class. These defensive end bodies that are 6'5" are always so intriguing because you never know what they're going to look like in 2 or 3 years. They're not rated as highly because their films just don't jump off the screen. I would say they have good Division I films, but not Ohio State national championship. Some of the pass rushers we see for Ohio State, those guys have rockets in their shoes, and that's kind of what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I don't understand the negativity. I'm kind of thrown by this, but it's so be it. Bill, what do they have headed up for the weekend? Anyone we need to know about?
Well, this coming week, you're talking about this coming weekend,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sure, which is, gosh, today is April 1st. So the weekend would be the 4th through the 6th. And, you talk about commitments. Maybe, I think anytime now he would necessarily come on campus, he would maybe be on commitment watch. He's scheduled to come in this weekend. Linebacker CJ Sana from Olentangy, right up the street, actually, from where I live, Olentangy High School. He's scheduled to be back at Ohio State this weekend on Saturday, April 5th, and he has a scholarship offer. So certainly he is one to kind of keep in mind. People ask, well, who might be on commitment watch? He'd be a guy that would come to mind. And another very interesting one coming in this coming weekend. Could it be 2 weekends in a row that Ohio State pulls out a great safety? Well, we'll see. Braylon Womack is scheduled to visit Ohio State on Saturday. Darius Gray, the offensive lineman I mentioned earlier, is scheduled to visit Ohio State this coming Saturday. So there's a few names that, again, I don't like to throw out the words commitment watch too easily, but I think you could make an argument that any of those guys would kind of be at least a little bit on commitment watch for this weekend.
We will have Mark's Buckeye in the Sky on recent commitment Blaine Bradford here sometimes later today. And keep in mind also that the guys are going to have access to the team again today, and that is going to be some good stuff. So keep it locked in here. Bill is on commitment watch every second of every day in reality. So he's here for you. Make sure you keep it locked in. Have a good one, Nutters of Buck.